Hey everybody, I'm live, and I want to start off real quick with a preamble that I believe it's important to look at, when all else fails, what's in our face and not deny or try to create an alternative explanation for what is obvious before us. And it's in that vein, with that mindset, that I make this vlog. The Oakland Police had a press conference today. Before I go to that press conference, I want to show you part of the video that started why you and I are here right now. It's here, the Zenny 62 version, and I made this because I wanted to find out what the scene was that was going on around the shooting. So I went straight to Instagram. And this is the vlog that I made, and I'll play for you. I won't play for you what I said. Well, I will, because it has the description of what happened.
Hey everybody, you've heard about the shooting at Lake Merritt, and I hope you weren't down there in the middle of all that mess. But it's one thing to get an email from the Oakland Police that reads like this. Well, listen. This evening, Saturday evening, June 19th, 2021, a large crowd of 1,000 gathered at Lake Merritt. Due to the large crowd and the gathering and people traffic, Oakland Police Department directed resources, illegal sideshow detail to the area to monitor for public safety. At 6:22 p.m., a shooting occurred at the 2200 block of Lakeshore. At this time, 6 victims suffered gunshot wounds, 5 males ranging in age from 16 to 27, and 1 female, 21 years old. 1 male, 22, was pronounced deceased at the hospital. The other 5 victims are reported to be in stable condition. Immediately after the shooting, Oakland police officers observed 2 men running from the scene with firearms. Both men have been arrested and 2 firearms recovered. Currently, the Oakland Police Department Homicide Division Investigative Unit will determine if the individuals are connected or responsible for the shooting. Encourage anyone with information, video footage, or photos to contact the Oakland Police Department's Homicide Division at 510-238-3821, Crime Stoppers of Oakland, and the Oakland Police Department offering up to $35,000 for information leading to arrests in this case, and the investigation is ongoing. You know, it's one thing to read that, but then it's another to identify the videos that you're about to see from Instagram, which I post under Instagram terms of service policy and fair use legal rights for news reporting. So here is what the scene really looked like. And folks, what you just heard me read to you pales in comparison to what you're about to see. Juneteeth in Oakland by the lake, folks. Start off a lot of fun for a lot of people. Photograph taken by Kyle World on Instagram, who wrote, "It was cool until the shooting started." Look at how many cars and people packed Lake Merritt. Look at this. This is from the shooting itself, apparently. This is very sad. Look away if you don't want to see this part. I don't know. This is on Instagram, what happened here. This is horrible. Okay. So, just horrible. Now let's freeze that.
Now, folks,
Someone was shot here.
You've probably seen that, so
this is on Lakeshore.
I'm going to move beyond that further and get to this point in the video, because after that occurred,
and
this happened.
Ambulance.
Later, okay? And they were doing this. This has been broadcast all over. It's been picked up on standard media, right-wing media. And as you will hear, the Oakland Police Chief,
This person gets on top of the ambulance. Now, mind you,
right?
they're putting a person in there. He's on top of it, and you can't see what's going on because there's so many people blocking the way.
Okay. And then,
see, that is,
and this goes on for quite a while. And we have
the apartment buildings that are part of.
Look at this. It's not only that, we have a fellow.
This person's still on the hood dancing.
Not only on the hood dancing.
And there's a woman on another car.
Okay.
If he's there, and then this is.
In that. Okay. That. And that's why I believe that, I'm going to stop that right there. That's why I believe, that was my first clue that, something was really, let me stop that here, was really up, all right? And that this may have been staged. And why is he celebrating? Why are they all there just like that? It's easy to just come to a quick cultural conclusion and say, oh, there's something wrong with them. But I think something more sinister was going down that actually created that. Now let's get to the Oakland Police press conference so we can get the police view, which further fuels my assertion that this event was staged for politics and for video creation. It wasn't just to make a viral video, but it was for political reasons too. And let me get to the news conference that was held today by the Oakland Police. This is the Oakland Police YouTube channel page and the video containing the message in chief. Here we go. Okay.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I just want to cover a couple things, particularly around the violence that we've seen in the city of Oakland over the last couple days, and talk about specifically the incident that occurred on Saturday at Lake Merritt. First of all, I want to say we don't believe that this was a random shooting. We believe that this was directly related to group and gang violence. And group and gang violence not even connected to the city of Oakland. This appears to be group and gang violence related to the city of San Francisco. We are working with the San Francisco Police Department, but we believe that individuals came to the city of Oakland and committed these violent acts. We did, however, make a couple of key arrests. There were several armed individuals out there, armed with firearms, prepared for conflict. We continue again in the city of Oakland to see far too many guns, particularly people willing to use guns in our city. And Saturday's events was one that people came armed for, unfortunately. Our homicide investigators have determined that the individuals responsible were multiple shooters, not just one. We've learned over the last couple of days that several people fired weapons during this event. Just to recap, on the evening of June 19th, we estimated there to be around 10,000 people around the entire lake. At about 6:22 p.m., it was estimated that in the 2200 block of Lakeshore, there was 5,000 people where the shooting actually occurred. We now have confirmed that there are 8 victims that were injured as a result of this shooting. They range from the ages of 16 to their mid-60s. We have 1 fatality and several other victims who are now in stable condition. The one fatally injured gentleman is a 22-year-old man from San Francisco. He was pronounced deceased at a local hospital. Due to the large crowd at this gathering and the traffic congestion, OPD directed several additional resources to this area. We originally had over 28 officers there to actually support all of the events that were happening at the lake. Again, there were multiple events happening in and around the lake. We brought in our additional sideshow detail that was actually funded by City Council's approval for additional funds specifically for sideshow 2 months ago. Those officers were redeployed from East Oakland, where we were anticipating sideshow, down to the lake to support our enforcement efforts there, beefing our numbers up to over 60 officers.
I'm going to stop that right there. He said, the chief said 60 officers for 10,000 people. 60 officers for 10,000 people. Think about that. You have 60 officers that are supposed to what? Divide, 10,000 people by one officer for every something like several thousand people. 60 officers. It would have been different if he had said, well, okay, I can see 300 officers for 10,000 people. Even then, that's a strip. 300 officers is doable, but 60? He had just 60 officers, and at that, he had to bring additional officers over the 28 he had. So he had 60 officers total. And he had to basically say, okay, I'll take 22 more. And that's it. That's all he had. That's all. That's all he had access to. And I'm saying that there wasn't enough of a presence to even question anybody who might do what I believe happened. Let's continue with the press conference, okay? Going down to
that were there at the lake in response to this large number of people that were gathered around the lake. We also had our Argus helicopter there, as well as help from the CHP helicopter. Although the shooting happened in Oakland, most of the people involved in this shooting were from outside of the area.
Which is the second clue for me that this was staged. Let's continue. And when I say staged, I don't mean the violence was faked. No, the violence is very real. This was done, I contend, for reasons of media and PR. People, and you'll find out why I assert this in a moment.
It was hard to get first responders into the areas because of the congestion. Firefighters and ambulances who responded to this area, because of the amount of people, it posed extreme risk and hazards to those firefighters as well as those emergency responders. We also had groups of people that were very unsympathetic to the incident. The fact that we had several people shot and injured. We had people who continue to dance in and around the ambulances, preventing the ambulances from leaving the area to get people to hospitals so that they can be treated. But we also had some people.
But see, note this. What Chief Armstrong missed was that they were making videos for posting. It wasn't just that they were twerking and all that. They were making videos. The women that were twerking were also the subject of videos that people were making of them twerking in front of the ambulance, doing this outlandish thing, thus creating this whole battery of viral videos. That's what the chief missed, and apparently his investigators too. Let's continue.
People that stood up, that actually helped out and helped open up traffic. We thank them for their efforts. We appreciate those that stepped up and helped us get the emergency services that were needed to the victims that were suffering.
Let me go
Immediately
forward.
after the shooting, officers observed 2 additional men that were running from the area. These men were arrested and 2 additional firearms were recovered. Again, these 2 individuals, based on our investigation, do not appear to be associated with the actual shooting. They were 2 additional individuals that were armed with firearms and fled from our officers. There were a large number of firearms at the lake on that day. People continue to come to the city of Oakland armed with firearms. We have to make sure in the city of Oakland that we're communicating that it is not okay to come to our city with guns, to solve confrontation through the use of firearms.
And see, that's why I don't believe this is a confrontation. All right. If you don't have evidence that someone had a beef with somebody else, I wouldn't put that out there. I think it's more likely this is a deliberate type of focused media attempt that people who did this were paid to do.
We encourage anyone that has information to share that information with the Oakland Police Department, video footage or photos that they may have. You can contact our OPD Homicide Division at 510-238-3821. I have Acting Lieutenant here to speak to you, Acting Lieutenant Sanchez here to speak to you about some of the follow-up steps we've had related to the homicide and shooting investigation.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. My name is Acting Lieutenant Leo Sanchez, Leosanchez. Currently, we're investigating a homicide, which we have a total of 8 victims, 1 deceased, 5 males, and 3 females were injured. All non-life-threatening injuries. We are now investigating a total of possibly multiple shooters involved. The 3 many individuals that are injured are from the city of San Francisco. Our law enforcement agency across the bay in San Francisco, we've contacted their gang task force team, and we're communicating with our gang task force team, and we've come to an agreement that there seems to be some group or gang feud going on. It appears that they may have met or encountered each other during the festivities at the lake. We're taking a lot of information and evidence from the community, such as surveillance footage, both cell phone and surveillance footage from buildings in the area. Those are coming in slowly, but they're coming into the police department. We also have many community members calling on the anonymous tip line, giving us information as well. That's what we have right now. Any questions?
So,
Yes.
2 San Francisco gangs involved, multiple shooters, and the 2 who've been arrested were not tied to this. So all of those responsible for the wounds and the murder are still out there. Do I have that right?
Well, that's a compound question. I'm going to answer it. So we have tied it. Some of the victims are tied to a gang or group from San Francisco.
Let me stop there. He's not certain. He said gang or group from San Francisco. And yet the stupid white media, I'm going to call it just like that, okay, comes off with this, oh, it's got to be a gang. It's like a black gang thing, all right? Thereby accelerating this this confederacy of dunces approach that has us seeking these common stereotypes and common explanations for a problem that you can see right there on TikTok and Instagram is, in terms of all the videos that are associated with that incident. The investigators don't understand the culture of media that exists today online and how it's also used by PR organizations to advance a message of mayhem that, hey, calls for more law enforcement, more police spending. Yes, it is political. Yes, that is my assertion. Because of the lack of certainty of who is involved in doing this, A, and then B, because of the fact that events like this have been a common part of our society for as far back as, well, I can mark 2008, and I'll show you that in a moment. Let's continue with the information from this press conference. And welcome to Zinni 62.
And the opposing party is likely also a gang group from San Francisco. We have no evidence yet that's come to my investigators that there's any Oakland gang ties involved in this, in the actual shooting. The second question is the victims appear to be from San Francisco and elsewhere also, other cities outside of Oakland. The shooters have not yet been identified confirmedly to confirm the identities, but we're working that hand in hand right now as we speak with the San Francisco Gang Task Force team.
Are all the 8 people who were shot, do you believe that they were intended targets, or were those innocent people that were caught in crossfire?
Again, this is preliminary investigation and is still in its early stages, but I think it's a little bit of both. I think some of the individuals that were shot and are injured, to include the individual that unfortunately passed away, I believe were targeted individuals. Those are the individuals that appear to be some gang or group connections with San Francisco. As well, there are individuals also that were just part of the festivities, part of the gathering, and were caught up in crossfire as well.
So just to confirm, 8 victims, including the young guy who passed away.
That's correct.
Are you releasing his name?
No, we're not.
Any surveillance footage? I guess you've got a lot of cameras there. Is that being of any help?
It is being of help. We have some surveillance footage from people from their cell phones that were just videotaping the gathering as it was going, but we're going and combing through a lot more, and we're actually asking for a lot more because there's a lot of footage out there because it was a fun, festive, joyous festivity up into that moment. So we're asking those people to please share your video footage with us so we can comb through it and we can find anything.
And see, this is why I think they're on the wrong track, because that video alone is not going to tell them as much as scouring online for any clues of people, or, you know what, better yet, putting out a reward for anybody who would have information that will point to this being a kind of flash mob or staged event. Maybe let's take the rival gang 3. Maybe one rival gang said, hey, you know what? I'm going to meet you down there and we're going to make it a show because we're going to get you. All right. And maybe one organization was paid to do that to get the other one. I mean, how did they know they were down there? And why on Juneteenth? See, that's the question I feel should be asked. Why did you do this on Juneteenth? Did someone pay you to come to Oakland on Juneteenth to cause mayhem? I don't care that people don't want to believe it. The disbelief is what people count on who do these things. They count on you not wanting to believe that's possible. That was the case, has always been the case in these kind of events. That's what gave rise to the organization Crowds on Demand, crowdsondemand.com. I talk about it all the time. I'm not going to go there right now yet. I will, though. But Crowds on Demand. And this is not a fake website. This is real.com. All right. It has been the focus of a number of news articles in publications like the Los Angeles Times, talking about how you can hire crowds on demand to stage a protest or any kind of event that makes people think that there are a lot of people who want a certain something done, or that they're upset about something, or that they're feting an actress or an actor on the street they happen to see, and all of a sudden this whole mob of people mobs them. Crowdsondemand.com. Check it out. Let's continue. Or some, or there are others like myself who believe that a firm like Crowds on Demand was used in the case of the Capitol riots. Okay, this is a new world, folks. You cannot evaluate this event with a 20th century lens. Don't do it. Let's continue. Let's continue.
Evidentiary value that will lead my investigators to come to close this case.
Have you been able to interview the victims who were shot yet?
We were able to interview some of the victims, but a lot of them are still up in the hospital, going through medical treatment, and our plan is to interview every single one of the victims. But we haven't interviewed all of them, no.
How should people submit video to you if they're at the event and want to get it to you?
Yeah, so we'll be able to provide that. We actually have in our criminal investigation division, we have a tip line that you can submit videos. We'll provide that after the press conference. We'd like to, for right now, we'd like to have Reverend Demita from Ceasefire speak, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Demita Davis Howard. I'm actually the director of Ceasefire here with Oakland PD. I started off as a community advocate, demanding that something be done about the violence in the neighborhoods and communities where I work and worship. This weekend was a tragedy. The kind of celebration that was happening around Juneteenth. My dad is from Texas. We live and breathe Juneteenth. It is about history. It is about cultural pride, this event was, and unfortunately, it was marred by gun violence, which we have been seeing all too often here in Oakland.
And that's what I'm saying. It's too perfect the setup. Okay? It's too perfect. Let's continue to hear her.
On Sunday, I can't remember the date, but it's June 28th at 5 p.m. Me and other clergy and the city of Oakland and OPD will be gathering to do more and more praying for the violence that's happening in Oakland. You see that the Oakland Police Department is doing what they can to make the violence subside. Communities are doing what they can, and now clergy and the faith community, we are coming together, and if it takes an act of God to stop the violence here in Oakland, we're gonna bring it down. We ask you to join us. We know that Oakland is a place of pride and dignity, and this is not acceptable, not to those who live in the Oakland Hills and not to those who live in the flatlands of Oakland. The violence must stop. We want those who are either shooters and or victims of shooting to know that this community and this city loves them. And we will do whatever we can to help them change the trajectory of their lives, including praying for them day and night. And that's what Oakland is about. We're going to reach out. We're going to surround ourselves, but the violence has to stop. Put the guns down. We love you, and we want you to thrive and be successful. We want Oakland to thrive and be successful. That's why I am the director of Ceasefire, to talk to these folks who may be shooters or victims of shootings and to help them make decisions that will change their lives and change our city. Any questions?
Yes, Reverend, you touched on it there briefly. Could you please address what it means to have such a celebratory day just happening, focused down near the amphitheater and spreading around the lake, and then to have this kind of happen? The tragedies, no matter what, but to have it on Juneteenth and to have it break up, that's a literally interrupt that.
But that's what I'm saying. That question underscores my point. Okay? I mean, straight out underscores my point about this being a kind of a setup. Let's hear what she's going to say real quick.
Talk about what kind of distress that causes, just both there around the lake and in the broader Oakland community.
The kind of distress is that we should have a safe space to celebrate culturally, everybody, no matter whether you're celebrating Pride Month or Juneteenth.
And we get that, and I get that one. What I want to get to in this press conference, I want to see if the police are even close to figuring out what I'm talking about, and I doubt it.
We'll be in Lake Merritt all summer long, celebrating one thing or another. What can police do? Anything to make them feel a little bit more secure, especially when this wasn't even a Oakland-bred crime. This was people coming across the bridge into your town.
Yeah, I mean, I think first to start off, we had 28 officers there to actually ensure that the lake was safe. We didn't anticipate that someone would come or many people would come to violate this sacred space. Obviously, you know, this event meant so much to so many people who have fought for so many years that you would have thought that people would have respected that. But we did have officers there, and we have to be appreciative of the officers' quick response to address this. This could have been far worse than what had happened. And it's a tragedy, but it could have been much more tragic. There were so many more guns out there. We're thankful that our officers were able to actually respond quickly and apprehend at least a couple of armed suspects, but be able to provide the rescue services that were needed. I'll say again, that this city has to come together around public safety, and the leadership in this city has to understand that community shouldn't have to feel the brunt of this violence every day, that they live with this every day, that someone.
And we get that from the chief, but again, they're still falling for, they're assuming that this is an organic activity, something that just sort of happened in the out of the air,
Also before the shooting occurred.
You had about 60 officers in the area of the lake in general.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When the numbers reached as high as around 10,000, there was a need for additional resources. So we reallocated those sideshow resources.
And so basically, out of this press conference, we're not going to get anything that points to an alternative reason. This press conference treats the event as if it were organic, as opposed to staged, because they have no explanation for how the people that perpetrated got there. They believe they were from San Francisco. This is not the first time, all right, that the Oakland Police have made this kind of mistake. They made this mistake last year. And let me show you why I say that and who I'm referring to when I say that they made the mistake last year. It's all around the story of a man that, if you're familiar with Oakland news and what's happening around Lake Merritt, Adams Point, where I live when I'm not here with my mom, you will remember the person you're about to see in approximately 3 seconds. 2, 1, 0. This man, his name is Victor Anari Singhvi, right? Well, his name really isn't Victor. But if you remember this brother at the lake last year, he was there holding an impromptu press conference announcing himself as the person who put this fitness equipment up that was mistaken for a hangman noose. Remember that? This occurred June 29th, 2020. Okay? All right. And I wrote here, Victor Anari Singhvi, Lake Merritt noose dude, not an Oakland resident, but tech genius. Okay? Let me read to you what I wrote then at Oakland News Now about what happened. Victor Anari Singhvi, the man who's the focus of at least one of the hangman nooses that were spotted around Lake Merritt on June 17th. No word who is responsible for the fake body effigy, also hung with hangman nooses on the Bellevue side of Lake Merritt, was repeatedly said to be, quote, an Oakland resident, unquote, by mainstream media, specifically local Channel 7, KGO, ABC News. Well, folks, all that started because someone at KGO, ABC News wrote, and they actually did write this, folks, Oakland resident Victor Singhvi, who is black. All right, they wrote this, okay? They wrote this. Let me emphasize, okay? They wrote this. They wrote what I'm reading to you. Pay attention, okay? Pay attention, okay? All right, wrote this. Who's black, okay? I mean, that's what, let me repeat this. Oakland resident, I'm going to highlight this for you to see. Oakland resident Victor Singhvi, who's black, okay? And I'll make sure I'm scrolling down here. It's not scrolling for some particular reason, either that or the wrong one is showing up, okay? Let me try this one. Let me take this one and then go over here. I've got 2 of them open, as it turns out, and scroll down. But this is the one that this is what I'm reading to you, this part, right? Okay. And again, I'm highlighting, this is what I'm highlighting right here right now. Okay, you see that? There, all right? Again, I repeat. Well, folks, all that started because someone at KGO, ABC News wrote, quote, Oakland resident Victor Singby, who's black, told KGO TV that the ropes were part of a rigging that he and his friends used for a larger swing system. He shared a video of the swing in use, the Associated Press report. I wrote sloppy, okay? My point is this, folks, all right? And the person wrote that, Laura Anthony, is a friend of mine. And I said, Laura, why did you write he's black? In other words, the implication being that, oh, because he's black, this couldn't possibly be a race matter. And this is a person white putting that out there. From her lens, it's okay because he's black. From my lens, I'm thinking, oh no, no, not at all. No freaking way. That's like, I call it the whole banana in the tailpipe syndrome, from Beverly Hills Cop. In fact, I get to that here, all right? Both KGO, ABC, and much of the conservative white media to underscore the point that there is a racial perspective that comes with media, even if we don't want to see it. And I'm reading this right here, okay? This is what I'm reading, all right? This is what I'm reading, okay? We're fast to try and broom the whole problem. This is where I'm reading right here, folks. Try to broom the whole problem because a black man, remember Laura Anthony wrote, he's black. A black man, Victor Anari Singby, held an impromptu press conference to say that he just made a swing set. And it's called The Banana in the Tailpipe from the Beverly Hills Cop, or this. I'm not going to play it here because it's a copyright violation if I do, but okay? And what I continue to explain is, and that's Victor Anari Singby's Facebook page, okay? Look at it. All right, it reads he lived in San Francisco, folks. He lived in San Francisco, not Oakland, okay? Yet they reported that he was in Oakland. Look at this, okay? Yet what did they do? Look up here. KGO wrote Oakland resident Victor Singby, who's black, all right? They didn't even bother to look up his name to find his Facebook page to find out that he says, hey, he lives in Oakland. Okay? And I write, and if you believe I'm putting Victor Singby in the role of Eddie Murphy's Axel Foley, you would be correct. In this, the San Francisco Bay Area mainstream media, led by KGO, ABC, are represented by the Beverly Hills Cops, played by Judge Reinhold and John Ashton. Now, anyone searching Victor Singby would find mostly news about him connected with the Lake Merritt hangman noose problem and a couple of social media pages, and that's it. The non-curious would happen to then pass by and, well, let the banana in the tailpipe remain just that. They would also pass right over Anari Singby. All right? Who is Anari Singby and where does he live? Well, if Victor Anari Singby is a, quote, Oakland resident, why did his Facebook page say, oh, he lives in Oakland? It reads San Francisco. Plus, Victor Anari Singby has a number of events and connections to the local SF Bay Area tech community and more than a passing interest in gaming and SaaS, which is called software as service, company ideas, promotions, and in one case, a startup. Then I happened to see Anari Singby without the Victor and discovered a whole new world, okay? I mean, and you know what? And I say whole new world, and I say this. Hold on to your butts, folks, okay? This gets better, all right? On Crunchbase, where I'm listed, Anari Singby is credited with 2 startup companies, Food.Club based in DC, and is said to be your meal delivered with a mystery gift box, and Gamerholic, billed as a site that awards people with Bitcoins and Gamerholic coins for playing video games. All right. And I found more interesting stories about him. That's Victor Anari Singby and Gamerholic. My point is this, okay? All the other media organizations completely missed this guy and his real story. And I remember I was telling this to Davey D, and Davey asked a great question. He said, did you check and see if he was connected with the African Americans for Trump or something like that? I did. I couldn't find any connection. But my point is, everyone just went with the ABC7 story that was about a guy who really doesn't exist. That's the real guy from San Francisco, which brings up the magic question. What the frick is he doing in Oakland on Lake Merritt, putting up these swings to do that? And I believe that he was paid to do that to sow racial confusion during the election campaign in a way to get people to basically take race claims and racism claims less seriously, to destroy Black Lives Matter in the wake of George Floyd. Okay? And remember something, Trump lost the election, all right? But I contend that there are efforts afoot to continue to sow the seeds that we have discourse, racial disharmony, and violence such that we need the police, and to pave the way for what will happen next year, which is what? That's right. The 2022 midterm elections are coming up. You get what I'm saying? We have a recall coming up of our governor, led by Republicans. You get what I'm pointing to here? None of these events should be taken as if they're disconnected. In an internet age, in a social media age, that is the stupidest thing that you can do, especially if it's your job to investigate these or report on these. All right? Now, getting back to what happened, I want to share something with you that is of even, I think, more importance, and it gets to, it was also another reason for, another raison d'etre for me communicating the idea that I am communicating to you tonight. And it's right here. There. Senate bill cracks down on staged violence on the internet. This is from a source that you would think has nothing to do with us, but it does. Dated July 7th, 2008, by former New York State Senator Dean G. Skelos. I'm reading it now. It goes like this. Okay. My colleagues and I in the Senate have passed legislation to crack down on the alarming trend of recording criminal acts of violence with the intent of distributing them on the internet for entertainment purposes. The legislation comes in response to an increasing number of violent attacks orchestrated and recorded by individuals who want to post the videos on internet sharing sites such as youtube.com and myspace.com. It is unimaginable to think that anyone would willfully look to physically attack another individual with the expressed intent of videotaping the act and placing it on the internet for others to watch as if it were some form of legitimate entertainment. The sadistic thought process seems to focus on the recording and internet posting of the violent act itself. By passing this legislation, we are letting these individuals know that this brutal trend affecting our children and our homeless will not be tolerated. This bill will create the new crime of unlawful violent recording when a person commits an assault while knowingly capturing the crime with a recording device. In addition, a person who persuades others to commit crimes against each other for the purpose of recording, viewing, or broadcasting the crime would be guilty of conspiracy in the fourth degree, a Class E felony. Both crimes would allow additional penalties of 1.5 to 4 years in prison. Earlier this year, a group of teenage girls in Central Florida recorded the brutal beating of a 16-year-old girl and posted it on YouTube, where it was widely viewed. Just last month, an incident thought to be inspired by the attack in Florida, a group of middle school girls in southern Indiana videotaped the beating of a 12-year-old classmate and also posted it on the internet. Similarly, attacks against the homeless are gaining notoriety on video sharing sites. A group of high school students recently went on a crime spree, recording violent acts against the homeless, including throwing smoke bombs and setting fire to homeless individuals, with the intent to become, quote, famous, unquote, on the internet. Similar videos can be found on sites such as myspace.com entitled Bum Hunter, where homeless people are dragged from alleys as they sleep to be assaulted and degraded, modeled after the television show Crocodile Hunter. Criminologists call these wild sprees sport killings. Middle-class teens with no criminal records who assault the homeless with bats, golf clubs, and paint guns for fun. Teens sometimes tape themselves in the act and have said they were, quote, inspired by bum fights, unquote, a video series created in 2002 and sold on the web that features homeless people pummeling each other for the promise of a few bucks or some alcohol. According to the National Coalition for the Homeless, attacks against homeless individuals are at the highest levels in almost a decade. In 2006, there were 122 attacks and 20 murders of homeless people. In addition, the Senate of New York approved related legislation to ensure students, parents, and teachers have the resources they need to keep children safe while using the internet. The bill, S. 7051, directs the state education commissioner to work with the state police, the New York State Office for Technology, and other appropriate resources to develop software and a handbook of guidelines concerning safe and responsible use of the internet. The materials will be provided to students in grades 3 through 12, as well as their parents or legal guardians, okay? That is what, okay, inspired me to produce this video. And I want you, as I'm talking here, I want you to basically, as I close, be reminded of the scene the other scene, okay, that has to do with this. First of all, this what happened Saturday is all over conservative media. Think about that. This is all over national news. Think about that. Think about the image that it portrays of Oakland yet again. Think about what happened right after Donald Trump mentioned all the cities he was going to send the troops to. And then after an 8-second beat, roughly, he said, and Oakland. And then later that night, the house of Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf was attacked by 30 masked protesters who still have not been apprehended to this date, and yet wrote notes on her garage that indicated they had no clue about Oakland politics, like basically saying, hey, look, you should have an anti-eviction ordinance. We have had one on the books for a year up to that point. I could go on. It was staged to make it look like, oh, the mayor is in danger, and by God, you need the police, and you've got to reelect Donald Trump. All of it for that. Because the Trump administration, the Trump campaign administration, the organization, was worried about how to deal with Black Lives Matter until they found the public relations answer. Emphasize law enforcement, come up with fake news about problems where you have to send the federal troops here and there. Remember that? Okay? You cannot discount the power of social media and it's how it's used to play, and media, how it's used to play out these events. Beginning back to what I was going to show you from a YouTube standpoint here, that I want you to keep in mind, all right? Quite and very simply, is this. And it's it has to do with the previous video that I showed you about this, the incident, but I'm going to scroll over to a specific part of that I want you to really pay attention to as and it's this right here. It's this. That, not that so much as let me copy that and then paste this in there, and it should stop right here. Okay. Remember that? There.
Take a
It's
look
not
at
so much these. All right. Excuse me. Let's go back a bit. But what it is this. This guy with his cell phone. All right.
this is another angle.
Right there with his cell phone. And the number of people who had cell phones. See? With his cell phone. Photographing that act. Where do you think that video is going, folks? Put your noggin on. Look around for that video. He's not the only one. All these folks had videos. They didn't just, I contend, they didn't just, walk by and say, oh my God, I'm going to go and jump in and do that automatically. Okay. I believe this is part of a staged effort. Prove I'm wrong. Prove I am wrong. I contend I am right. Prove I'm wrong. OPD investigators, prove I'm wrong. Media, prove I'm wrong. Folks, prove I'm wrong. Okay? Why do you have to believe? Let me ask you a question. Why do you have to come with the idea that this is a spontaneous event as opposed to a staged one? And before I close, as I show you that, and I've talked about this before, and I've talked about it before, and I've talked about it before, and I'll talk about it again. And it's this, right here. Crowds on Demand. This is the site I've been talking about, folks. If you don't know about Crowds on Demand, one elected official I talked to had no clue about this. Didn't know it existed until tonight. Okay? Crowds on Demand. Your home for protests, rallies, advocacy, audiences, PR stunts, and political events. Services available nationwide. Contact us, request a quote. This is not a fake website, folks. How do I know? Okay. First of all, aside from the fact that you can hire demonstrators, there's more detail here and what they do, right? Crowds on Demand, 8484 Wilshire Boulevard, Beverly Hills, California, 90211, United States, 800-349-9579, okay? All right? And then guess what? Guess what? Guess what? All you have to do, want to know more about it, type Crowds on Demand in Google search, and then click on news. All right. And then make sure you do the quotes around it so you can capture crowds on demand, like here. Okay. And then there. Entergy astroturfing fine used to buy surveillance cameras for second time. Mesa alleges CEO Adam Schwartz discovers his controversial firm, Crowds on Demand. Okay, that's in the Mesa Legend. All right, Crowds on Demand. You see what I'm talking about here? Crowds on Demand. All right. Looks like a protest of real people. It looks organic, doesn't it? All right. And there's Adam Swart. He said he got the idea for Crowds on Demand when he noticed crowds could attract interest. Living in Los Angeles, you see so many people with paparazzi. I started asking myself, who are these people? Now, what's the perfect situation to set up than a place where you know there are going to be crowds, and so you can create mayhem within the crowd and better assure the escapability of the perpetrators of that incident within the crowd. All right? Crowds on Demand, okay? And he talks about his paparazzi business. He says that Crowds on Demand is operational in every American city internationally. It's commonly known for flash mobs, rallies, and protests. Large groups of talent are paid to support advocacy groups and causes or to act as supporters for high-tech business launches. The list for scenarios involving crowds is, his words, he says, endless. Endless, all right? That's not enough for you? Okay, well then take a look at this one, this entry from I mentioned the LA Times over here. Los Angeles, pay protesters, they're real. and a Beverly Hills law firm, that hires them stands accused of extortion in a lawsuit. Okay? And here we go. Coalition to Protect OKD Minors. This was October 21st, 2018. Crowds on Demand, a Beverly Hills firm that is an outspoken player in the business of hiring protesters, boasts on its website that it provides clients with protests, flash rallies, flash mobs. You get the idea, okay? The company has hired actors to lobby the New York City Council on behalf of a power plant operator, protests a Masons convention in San Francisco, and act like supportive fans and paparazzi and an LA conference for life coaches. But according to a lawsuit filed by a Czech investor, Crowds on Demand also takes on more sordid assignments. Okay? More sorted assignments. More sorted assignments. All right? Zene Baca. I didn't pronounce this name correctly. I'm aware of it. If you know the better pronunciation, let me know. Claims the firm has been used to run an extortion campaign against him. Ooh, okay. Bacala has accused Prague investment manager Pavel Krupa of hiring Crowds on Demand to pay protesters to march near his home in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and to call and send emails to the Aspen Institute and Dartmouth College, where Bacala serves on advisory boards, urging them to cut ties to him. Bacala alleges that Krupa has threatened to continue to expand the campaign unless Bacala pays him $23 million. All right. Here's Crowds on Demand founder again, Adam Swartz Center, briefs a group of actors before a demonstration in Beverly Hills. And Swartz said he's never confirmed or denied they're working together. He says, not only will I vigorously defend myself against the allegations in the complaint, but I'm also evaluating whether to bring my own claims against Mr. Bacala, Swartz said. So basically suing his client in order to cover up himself, okay? And listen to this. President Trump, whose campaign reportedly hired actors to cheer at a 2015 rally, has repeatedly claimed that protesters, most recently those fighting the Senate confirmation of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, are being paid by liberal billionaire George Soros and other moneyed interests, okay? And my point is that, all right, look, and here's the impact. After protests, search engines and paid protesters increase. This has been ongoing, okay? So what's to stop this, What's to stop this? There's nothing to suggest that this is going to stop at all right? And it is a lucrative business. Crowds on Demand is a lucrative business. They hire a crowd business and they operate openly. Now let me type violence. Crowds on Demand violence. All right. And blog posts wrongly say there's proof Democratic are actors. All right. Fact check, was activists at Charlottesville paid? This is all over the place. Okay. All over the place. You get the idea. I can go on and on and on. All right. Mama Harper says, I hadn't considered this, but nothing should be put past those with a agenda. Not at all. And see, folks, if the OPD investigators had something concrete, like, oh yeah, these were like, here's my point, because this is the luxury of experience. I remember when my friend, longtime friend John Russo, I got to send John this, who was our city attorney, three times elected, should have been fourth, should have been brought in by Libby, but that's another story. Anyway, when John would talk about gangs, those gangs had names. The Norteños, for example. He could name the names of the people involved with the gangs. In other words, we substantively knew the gang names and the players within those gangs. In that light, it's incomplete for an OPD investigator to say there are gangs or groups involved. That's what he said. Because based on what we've done in Oakland in the past, where we know the gangs by name and we know who's involved, and we're used to hearing that, I'm waiting for the punchline, right? Who is it? What's the name of the gang, right? I don't get that. Instead, I get this kind of flimsy, crunchy kind of information, right? What can I do with this? It crumbles in my hands, okay? It's not robust. It doesn't point me to something that dissuades me from believing that this was a staged event for an online messaging political purpose. And I'm telling you, this has been done in Oakland several times. When what happened to the mayor's office happened to her, I called her and I told her about this. This isn't the first time I brought up this possibility. And I'm saying this again and again and again because it's clear to me that OPD investigators don't look in this way, right? Mama Hopper says, unless I'm mistaken, just yesterday they said suspect was in custody or he's identified, yet today no one is in custody and they're asking for tips from the public. What? Right. And Mama Harper, something else too. The person they had in custody, the great investigator had said that there was no ties, no obvious ties to the incident. They had guns and they ran from the scene. But why were they there to begin with? And see, that gets to the question, why aren't the investigators asking questions like I wrote to Ms. Watson, our great PIO, and I said, I just want to know if they're asking if these people were paid to be there. I don't care how ridiculous it sounds, but I hope you understand after watching this that it's not far-fetched at all. All right? I've given you enough information to provide in your head a reasonable possibility that this can happen, or at least another direction to be investigated, if only to demonstrate that it's wrong. Okay? All right? As Eric says, the fact that he even said it's early investigation, yet they know from out of town. Okay? So that's it, folks. There you are. We've got work to do here, and we've got to beef up and improve how we do law enforcement in order to cope with a 21st century problem. And it's clear right now that we're not there. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com. Thank you.